You're still watching Prime Morning. It's time for us to delve into what the newspapers have for us. And today we have a rep from the NDC. He is the deputy organizer for the Upper West with regards to the NDC. Good morning, Prince Muhammad. That's the name, right? Is that how to pronounce it?
Yeah, maybe just a little stress you added. Prince Mahmoud.
Mahmoud. So
yes.
the ha is not pronounced.
Yes,
okay, so Prince Mahmoud is my guest for this morning. And he is the deputy organizer for the Upper West region for NDC. Welcome to Prime Morning. This morning, your first time being here?
Yes, this is my first time.
Oh, welcome. Then we'll have a great show then.
Yes.
We know that Aston North is just around the corner.
So,
NDC, are you guys ready to take it up?
Let me start by saying a very good morning to our cherished viewers across the country and beyond, most especially those from my region, the Upper West region. I think asking whether NDC is ready for Aston North, yes, you ought to ask it, but the answer is very obvious. We have been very ready for Aston North since the day the plan and well orchestrated plan to get Honorable Kwesi out of Parliament started. The NDC equally started preparing for the primaries. The by-election. So as for our preparation is apt, just like we are equally very prepared for the general elections in 2024. We though quite unfortunate, but these by-elections are generally test cases of what will happen in 2024 general elections. You saw what happened in Kumawu just a few weeks ago. We put up a very good show there, and the results was positive. Though we did not get a win, what we had there was significant enough to give an indication that the NDC is well prepared. But
what you have is not even 50%. You do even have 40%.
That's what I'm saying. If you look at, elections goes generally with data. Political party performance in elections is best measured in data. The data available shows that the NDC did better than what we did in 2020 general elections, which is the immediate elections that we can use to measure our strength. We did 50% better than what we did in 2020 general elections, and our opponents did less than 20% improvement in their popular vote. So it speaks volumes. So we might not win that seat, but our performance certainly there was much better than 2020, and that's an improvement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the question here is why you're taking the same candidate that, faced the Court of Justice, and he's been found guilty, proven guilty by court, yet he's the same man who is going to represent the NDC for this seat.
To start with, I think we as a party accepted the ruling of the Supreme Court, but that doesn't mean that we believed in whatever processes that happen at the Supreme Court. One thing that is important is that we, the NDC, believe and know that Honorable Kwesi was unjustifiably targeted just for the purposes of the MPP gaining majority in Parliament, you understand. If you look at what the details are in terms of what the primary issue is, that he is a dual citizen, isn't it? Renunciation of his membership, his citizenship as a Canadian. As we speak, he has his certificates, and even before he came into Parliament and was being sworn in, he had the certificate of renunciation. So primarily, we don't see anything wrong. Apart from that, he is generally the accepted candidate in the constituency, and it's manifesting for the past weeks. When he went down and the constituents joined him to hold a vigil, you saw what happened in Aston North. You can see the love. And in fact, some constituents have spoken to the media, and their indication is that it's really quite unfortunate, but a blessing, because through him, today they are getting their rooms being fixed and all those. And they were going to, from what they said, they are going to send him back to Parliament. So asking whether, why we are repeating the same candidate, we think that he was unjustifiably vilified and targeted and ousted from Parliament And apart from that, he is the choice of the people. That is why the NDC is repeating him.
Now, if he is sentenced, of course, he fails a jail term up to 10 years. Now, if he goes to jail, what happens? Just in case he should win this by-elections.
That's prejudicial.
Okay.
It's early days yet for anybody to start talking about sentencing.
No, but you have to also think about
That's
it,
what I'm
because
saying.
The court has found him guilty. If the court hasn't found him guilty, then we can say it's too early.
So that's the civil aspect of the case. Now we're going to enter into a new chapter which has to do with the supposed criminal aspect of the case. And I'm saying that early days yet for anybody to start thinking that the court is going to find him guilty on the criminal charges as well. But there is clear difference between the civil and the criminal. So it's one thing at the time.
If found guilty, now this is the same person, civil rights, he's been found guilty. So there's also a possibility, let's say 50-50, okay, that criminally he's found guilty and he wins this by-elections and he's sentenced. What's next? You know,
all the 274 or 73 MPs we have in Parliament, any of them is a potential candidate for jail. You agree with me? So it really doesn't matter. Any of them is a potential.
So then
any of them can be charged. I'm just saying that, so it becomes difficult for you to so much predict what is going to happen. I'm just saying that in as much as we think that the criminal aspect of the case could land Honorable Kwesi in jail, I'm just saying that all the 243 MPs today can be charged on some criminal distance.
It's his issue. And with him, we are having a by-elections because of what has happened.
And you know, if you check, we have this should be about 32 or 33 by-elections we have had since 1993. And this one is unique because he is the only, this is the only by-election that the person that caused the vacancy, his removal caused the vacancy, is the same person contesting on the same ticket of his political party. In other words, if the person is late, it's a different candidate. If the person is switching camp, then he goes to a different, but this is the only time you have the candidate coming back, the same person representing his party. So,
and that is why people are asking this question, because we don't want any financial loss to the state. By-elections are organized with our pocket, our monies, taxpayers' money. So if we have a situation where if Mr. Kwesi, we are hoping it doesn't happen though, found guilty criminally and he has to face jail term, which we are hoping doesn't happen. Okay, but just in case it happens, what happens? Then it means that the state has to organize another by-election.
You see, talking about causing financial loss and the state spending so much money, if we're in any country that was so serious with our resources, the Electoral Commission today should have been standing trial on causing financial loss to the state.
Why do you say this?
It's not only by-election that will cause the state to spend. Even the trial process caused the state to spend. How did we get here? If the Electoral Commission, one of their mandate is to, if you like, cross-examine all documentations or whatsoever that any candidate is filing. If the Electoral Commission has the right to disqualify any candidate that by law is not qualified. How did Honorable Kwesi go through all the process and got into Parliament?
So you're saying that
I'm just saying that I'm throwing it back to you. I'm saying
that it's
you mentioned financial.
But the court of law didn't say it so. Why?
No, but what I'm saying is that what is the mandate?
No, but why did the court of law?
One of the primary, what's the name? Mandate of the Electoral Commission is to vet through documentations that aspirants or candidates file, isn't it? And if by law, the Electoral Commission's actions and their duties are included and guided by law, how did it happen that the illegal, in quote, went through the process and finally got into Parliament? So if there is anybody or any institution that should stand trial for causing financial loss is the Electoral Commission.
Has the NDC gone to court because of this? To find, to sue the EC for causing financial loss to the country? Because what you're saying, if Mr. Kwesi was placed before court because EC didn't do the correct job, then the NDC should have filed.
In principle, it's not our position that Honorable Kwesi went through the process with illegal documents. That's not the position of NDC. So going to court to sue the EC for causing financial loss would have meant that we agree that it was illegal.
So you agree that it's not illegal?
No, yes, we agree that he went through. That's why we had to fight the case through several...
But two wrongs don't make a right, right?
So who is the first wrong and the second wrong?
You are saying EC made a wrong. You are saying that EC made a wrong.
I'm saying that...
I'm saying that you said that EC made a wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that, now, if you have the same candidate, go twice, and just in case. You still haven't answered that question.
Yes. Our position is just like belief. Our position, what we know and what we are fighting in court currently on the criminal case is that we have a genuine case, and we believe that if the courts will be fair in their processes leading to pronouncing judgment, he will be freed.
Okay.
That's the position.
We are hoping so. Let's start with our very first newspaper then. I'll start with the Ghanaian Publisher newspaper, and it reads, Finance Minister slaps Captain Smart with 10 million Ghana cedis lawsuit. Ooh, that's quite a huge amount of money though. I don't know what the outcome will be, but do you trust in our judicial system?
Let's discuss Captain Smart. Yesterday, one of my colleagues told me I should be very careful. I don't
when you talk about these things, right?
No, that I shouldn't land myself standing in front of the Supreme Court answering questions.
Well,
trusting the judicial system, do we have an option not to trust them? No.
You don't.
We just have to trust them. Okay. I get in the point. Coming from the background that they are supposed to be those who will stand in for all of us. So that's why if you look at the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, their symbols define it, they all have meaning. It is only the judiciary that deals with a spear and a guard to protect and also to fight for the ordinary person. So we don't have any option than to believe in.
Right. Miracle Duka gives Takwa Inswaim a best teacher.
But I'm on that particular story, I'm quite... Okay. You see, there is this general culture of silence that this government is trying very hard to instill on individuals and state institutions to shut up. That is why we begin to see some of these things happening. Everybody must keep quiet. Everybody must speak what the government wants. And that is bad. That's very negative to the democratic development of this country. It's very wrong. People should be allowed to express themselves. Institutions should be allowed to say it as it is. Look, most of our critical sectors in our development today is collapsing because everybody is afraid to talk. Agreed,
but you ought to also say what is true. You don't just talk because you are allowed to talk.
Which I agree with you.
So if he's suing him for defamation, then it means that there are things that he said that probably were not true that could tarnish his image.
But sometimes as a leader, with all due respect, Captain Smart did not... did he murder him? Try his life, didn't take the wife. Then what did he do? He just spoke his words.
Words are not just. Words can destroy you.
I understand.
Words
I understand. What I'm saying is that...
words can make you suicidal. So words are not just words.
So I understand. I removed the just. But what is important is that he just did his work. If you look at his style of journalism, which also have its own way, trying to advocate, trying to say it hard as it is. And if I was a leader and he says something like that and I think and believe in me, it's opposite. What is it?
But if it could destroy your image,
The finance minister, our current finance minister, I doubt that, I mean, whether in our current political dispensation, whether he has any image to protect. He's been one of the most discredited ministers that we have in this country today, to say the least, with all due respect. So for me, I'm not talking about other parts of his life, but in our governance setup, he's one of the most discredited, to say the least.
You know, a few of your colleagues have come out to say that, you know, in 2016, there was a lot of lies purported against then President Mahama.
Sure.
And that is why the NDC lost power. Could it be that when the lies were being purported, because the NDC didn't act, that is why people believed and voted against the NDC? And so it's about time that the MPP act to prevent this from happening.
Was it a lie against the NDC or John Mahama as a person?
Even if it was against John Mahama, you as a party, you should defend your man, shouldn't you? He's the flag bearer of the party.
You see, the case of 2016 was a people that believed in a message that came from President Nana Akufo-Addo. So what they had, or what they were getting from the NDC from 2009 to 2016, yes, it was good, but they had a better message. And naturally, they will go in for the better message.
So at that time, you didn't have a message. The NDC.
No, what I'm saying is that what we provided Ghanaians
was not good enough.
Was good, okay, but
not enough.
Somebody came, a candidate came. Why? If I tell you today that I'll give you what item will I just maybe a Toyota Corolla, I've provided it for you, and somebody comes and tell you that okay, Toyota Corolla not comfortable for you, below standard and all those, so I'll give you this particular brand that is far superior. In human nature, it's normal that you will be tempted to go in for what is superior than what you have. President Nana Akufo-Addo at that time promised us heaven. So for me, I feel that Ghanaians, even though because we're getting the basic social amenities, we're getting progressive free senior, we're giving progressive free senior high school. Somebody comes and say that I will give you free senior high school completely. What did you expect? Today, what do we have? So from 2017 till date, those lies, those unrealistic promises that was given by the MPP, headed by President Nana Akufo-Addo, is what is really causing the downfall of MPP today. That is why members within the MPP themselves will say, oh, he overspoke. He overpromised.
Really? I haven't heard them say that.
Even, I mean, on some of their campaign trail within themselves, they've started speaking that way.
Oh, within themselves?
The last time, I think, Hobson Adoye on a platform mentioned that he overspoke. Some of the things he said, these are not the words of Prince Mahmoud. So what is important is that if something is said against you and you think it is inappropriate, you do your part to explain yourself. If people believe it, but posterity, just like former President Mahama said, will be your judge. Today, look at the story on the front page of Daily Graphic. Give us textbooks.
We'll go to the Daily Graphic very soon. We are still on the Ghanaian Publisher. Sure. There's another story here saying World Bank blames Muhammads PPPS for Ghana's debt crisis. You
know, some of these international institutions, it gets to a point that they try as much as possible to satisfy their relationships with various governments, not only Ghana. You will remember when it got messy for us economically, and we had no option than to run to the IMF. You remember the commentaries that were run by the IMF representative in this country, trying to polish the situation that it wasn't that bad. Today, the NDC in 2009, January, under the late Professor Milson Mahama, inherited a total capacity generation at 1,080 megawatts, right? And the doomsday that has been occurring in our history, it was largely caused by insufficient generation capacity. That was the main cause of the power challenges we have had in our history. before the demise of Professor Mills, so Mills and Muhammad did close to 2,800 megawatts within a matter of 3 years, right? Before the NDC handed over power in January 2017, John Mahama handed over 4,888 megawatts of power to this country. So primarily, we shouldn't have power challenges because of insufficient generation capacity. So that means that he was able to primarily cure our power crisis, even going into the future. He is also one of the presidents that led the chart to shift from the hydro power. I mean, try as much as possible, let me be careful here, to shift our dependence from hydro power, which was much more of a natural reliance. You only rely on rain. If it doesn't, if you are a president, you call ministers to go and pray at Akosombo so that rains will fall. Today we are not seeing all those funny clips. Today we've succeeded. If you go to the northern sector, the recently commissioned solar projects at the north, especially in my region, it was started by the former President John Mahama and now Akufo-Addo.
So what World Bank is saying is not true?
Oh, that's what I started by saying. That you see, when it gets to a point, they just try to make it nice, wet.
So you think that they've been paid to say what you're saying?
Not to pay, even for the purposes of their operations. Because
so
look,
bootlicking?
Not bootlicking. It's just something like unauthored policy they have, just sometimes to make it nice for the government. But look,
but could there be some truth in there as well?
No, for me, no. I read the story, I think, a few minutes ago. And I mean, excuse me to say that the rep has been reckless with his statements of late. Very, very reckless. But that is it. That is, the reality is there. And just like I put up the few figures.
If the rep is saying these things, could there be some iota of truth in there? Or you think that the rep has been, somebody is somewhere manipulating this rep to say these things so they can have, NPP can maintain power in 2024.
So you see, the specifics doesn't support what he said. Currently, we are being faced with intermittent power outages, and everybody will attest to that fact. What is the cause? Is it that we don't have enough generation? The answer obviously is no. If you have enough generation, what is left is managing the power that you have. How are you able? So you can imagine somebody who brought in the capacity, managed it and handed over to you. Now your duty is just to manage it, and it's difficult for you. If it was a case that you were now to generate yourself and manage it, that would have
so if World Bank is saying this, and there's no iota of truth in it, the NDC should see.
The NPP is in their seventh year governing us. What the World Bank rep raised had to do with cost of the procurement. You remember when NPP took over power in 2017, one of the things they vividly did, spending our money to chase, was to find out shady deals in quotes that in their minds they thought went through in procuring these PPAs. And when they went, you remember the trip, the popular and famous trip that was embarked on by this their lawyer, the lawyer, Nana Akufo-Addo's lawyer in the 2013 presidential.
Which of them are you talking about?
There was this, I've just forgotten. He led the MPP councils at the Supreme Court in the 2013 presidential. Philip something. Yeah. You remember his trip to Dubai? What was it meant for? It was meant to go and dig, according to them, Philip Addison, to go and dig deep to find out the shady deals that went on in the Ameri deal and those things. He only came back with a golden watch provided him by Ameri. So it was much ado about nothing. They didn't find out, they didn't find anything. So it becomes a much more hopeless situation if World Bank and the MPP government today is still telling the world that Mahama and the NDC did ABCD untoward in procuring those PPAs, and everybody is still walking a free man.
How do you let the World Bank keep shut about these things?
This story just came up, I think.
So will the NDC react to it?
Maybe I'm not in a better position, but I know our ranking members, especially on energy committees, will be speaking very soon.
That's good then. Let's do the Daily Graphic newspaper and read a new curricular implementation. Give us textbooks. Educational heads cry out to GES ministry. Moves to resolve challenge. Okay, so educational heads cry out to GES, and also ministry moves to resolve the challenge. That's what it says. Anthrax rears ugly head, kills one in Upper East. Ooh, this is not good to hear. Where from this whole anthrax again? Where's it coming from? I'll ask you because you are coming from that side of town. SMEs Clinic and Fair Access Bank lends 504 million Ghana cedis to 170,000 businesses. And we also see that KNUST rated first in world ranking for quality. Okay, that will be all for the Daily Graphic newspaper. So let's talk a little bit about anthrax. Because we all thought anthrax was gone. How did it come back?
I think I was here when I read the story. You know, this is a period that we consume a lot of meat. Especially, I mean, this from this story, in Upper East, I think it broke up in Upper East. You know, because of the Eid Adha, that is just some few weeks away, we haven't so many cattle being moved into the country. So when I read the story, I think that according to the regional health director of Upper East region, it's around the borders that those communities that have been hit by that sickness is around the borders. So the suspicion is that it's being imported.
But something must be done about it.
So that's what I'm saying, that from what I know, when these cattle are being moved into our country, our concentration at the borders is to get the revenue, the needed revenue. But health-wise, to check, I get that one is always missing. So I think that this should be an eye-opener, and especially it has to do with health of human beings. We'll have to immediately, not to forget about the revenue aspect, but also to, as much as possible, put much concentration on vetting, getting the veterinary officers to do what they are supposed to do. Apart from even us getting sick after consuming these meats, it can easily spread among our livestock. That's where the fear is.
So you hear it's one person dead before you realize it's 10, before you realize it's not even in just Upper East, Upper West.
These things are moving down. They are moving down. Just like I said, it's an impending festive period that rely on these cattle to do a lot of sacrifice. So it's moving down. So as we speak, we shouldn't be surprised that some of these cattle have found their way down into the market here to cause this havoc to our health. So much pragmatic steps should be taken.
Exactly. Now this textbook issue, on Friday we did bring you an exclusive break that textbooks had been delivered to a lot of schools that didn't have access to textbooks. So we know that the textbooks have been given. Actually, you want to speak a bit about it?
Not just a bit. You see, our educational sector is like a time bomb. The only thing is that we are unable to predict exactly when it will explode. We've had generally a messy situation in our educational system. Why am I saying that? These curriculums these textbooks that we are speaking about, the curriculum was introduced somewhere almost 5 years ago. So what it means is that we've been teaching our children for the past 4 or 5 years a new curriculum without textbooks.
Oh no, it's not that. I think that yes, they had the textbooks, but some areas were a bit deprived.
I'm saying that.
Yes.
They have not distributed. I'm a teacher.
Oh, you're a teacher? So you haven't received textbooks?
Not.
Really?
Yes. There is nothing like that. And I'm repeating it again that there is nothing.
Which school do you teach in?
Or maybe for the purposes of the public. I want to keep that one.
Okay.
Yes. They've not provided any textbook. And you see...
But maybe we'll get there.
You know, for instance, you remember there was this unpopular decision taken by this government in providing books in 2019. This government was able to procure past questions for senior high schools worth millions of Ghana cedis. Yet they couldn't procure textbooks for these students. I get in the point. This thing happened because the major stakeholders in our educational system today, everybody is afraid to talk.
Well, let me read what the minister said,
sure.
With regards to these textbooks. He says, however, in a quick response, the Minister of Education, Dr. Yao Osei Educhum, said there were enough textbooks and copies for all regions, and said the ministry was working with the regional heads of stores to correct the deficit. We have procured enough textbooks for all subjects to go around all the schools. What is left is for regional stores to ensure that every school with a shortfall receives the extra textbooks they needed. As an interim measures to overcome the bottleneck, Dr. Educhum said he had engaged Ghana Post and another courier service to ensure that the textbooks were delivered quickly to places where they were short supply.
You know, what we are even battling with now, it's not distribution chain and its challenges. You remember some few months ago, there were even disagreements on reaching at a conclusion on the content of some of these textbooks. So at what point were they printed and distributed? You are in the media. You remember just a short while ago, there were issues about content in what we were supposed to have as textbooks. So if something has not been produced, how do you talk about distribution chain? Well, today, send your reporters across and let them do. The only problem is that today, nobody will want to talk.
Oh, we are talking. That's what
people
we are
don't want to
but
talk.
We are talking.
Look,
you and I are
just
talking.
A couple of
we are
weeks,
on TV right now.
Just a couple of weeks ago, we did a press conference in the Upper West region talking about food shortage in the senior high schools. A media house sent their reporter down. He tried speaking to 17 headmasters. Only one agreed to speak to him on strict condition of anonymity. 17 and only one. So we're talking about reality, not what people come to say. Okay. The reality is what we are saying.
Let's do the Daily Guide newspaper then. Okay. Oforiatta hits Captain Smart with 10 million Ghana cedis suits. Muhammads PPPS a dish economy, says the World Bank. NPP serial endorsers pop up, and they are standing behind Dr. Usuefri Yakuto. It's quite good. It's going to be an interesting race.
Yes. I think talking about the NPP primaries and people throwing that, just before this, I also read a story where the Ascent Central aspirants to their parliamentary primaries threw his support behind Kennedy Japan, and had to donate some 50,000 to support. That's politics, and every time I always say, as a politician and an actor in political party arrangements, what I do know is that one of the most difficult tests for any political party is to organize internal elections. It's one of the most difficult tests. If not well handled, it affects the general performance of the party outside. So when it comes like this, first and foremost, I wish them all the best. The only unfortunate thing is that money has started speaking. Our resources have started crying.
Oh, but that is in politics. We saw it during your elections. Why are we making it seem like
you saw former President Mahama carting hundreds of vehicles, branded vehicles. You saw that?
Have you seen anybody carting hundreds of vehicles?
Why? We saw Baumia's pickups.
No. You see, this is where the difference is. And let's not sit on television and say these things.
So I'm listening.
We heard that somebody came out to say that it was a donation.
somebody.
Yes, and it was the same thing when we heard that ex-president Mahama, who gave out 40 cities to candidates, purportedly, we heard that, yes, the party raised funds for it. So if we saw it in NDC,
so are
we
you
are seeing it in MPP.
Are you comparing the case of Mahmoud Bawumia, vice president, vehicles to
donated by him?
Oh, as for the person coming out, as for the person, why we knew him, we knew Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia. Why he didn't have those friends?
But it's the same thing.
He didn't have those friends. In 2016, he didn't have those friends. Any elections that former President Mahama has contested, he had given delegates transportation to the center.
But is it right?
What is wrong with that?
Can a candidate do that? Isn't it buying a vote?
No.
A candidate is buying vote. It's not a candidate's responsibility to transport.
It is your responsibility. You are looking for the vote. Yes, you see.
Yeah, so if he's also looking for the vote and somebody decides to donate pickups for him.
What I'm saying is that.
What's the big deal about?
There is consistency in what former President Mahama did, isn't it? What of Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia?
So if somebody loves you, somebody donates.
So is it today they started loving Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia?
Somebody can do something for you.
Oh, he's been there. He's been with the MPP right from 2009. I mean 2008.
But this is the first time being.
We've never heard anybody giving him bicycles.
This is the first time running.
But it is too much of a coincidence. It's too much of a coincidence.
Wait, is this not his first time running?
It's too much of a coincidence. He was he was equally a running mate, and being a running mate is not a mean thing to the candidate himself. I'm talking about. We know in history, some running mates in this country have contributed financially more than even the candidates themselves. So if those people loved Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, they should have shown that love.
They want to show
right
it now.
From what I'm saying is that there is consistency. There is no timeline, but we must be measured in looking at what is consistent and what is irregular. It's very important.
What is your measure of irregular and consistent?
The irregularity is that this is the same vice president who has been a running mate to President Nana Akufo-Addo right from 2008. We've never heard or seen anywhere that somebody out of the love for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia donated 10 bicycles branded for him. We've not heard and we've not seen.
In our daily lives, we meet people, we meet helpers. Probably that helper was not too long ago.
That becomes too much of a coincidence.
Really?
Yes.
So you can't meet the helper
and becomes
then
unrealistic.
The person just gets up to help you?
And that becomes very unrealistic. So you see, we should have seen in 2008, somebody donated 2 pickups to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to support.
What if we see it after this, the consistency, will that be okay with you?
It cannot be consistent even after this. It cannot be consistent.
Let me quickly read the rest and then we can take it from there. Quickly, the Chronicle newspaper, NPP primary is not a 2-horse race, says Nowasu. 5 orders to vacate in Kwatia Palace today. Takwa SHS tutor wins Duka Teachers Award. Obuasi East DCE spills the beans, how illegal miners attacked soldiers without any reaction from the Abongo boys. Right, let's do the Finder newspaper quickly as well, and I can take your final words.
No problem.
ECG commends Special Ice Company for prompt bills payment. NPA impounds 181,000 liters of smuggled fuel in the Western region. So what happens to these fuel then? Oh, wow. Okay. Dr. Akoto will cause an upset to win NPP primary, says their campaign team. And Muhammads power contracts, expensive, $937.5 million paid in 4 years for power not consumed. Major contributor to Ghana's debt woes. And that will be all for the Finder newspaper. Now, this particular story, I hope that the NDC will see something about it, if it's not true.
You see, sometimes let's be very honest with ourselves. Granted that what he is ranting is true, that the power we procured is expensive. They have the opportunity
to correct it,
to either renegotiate or opt out and go in for something that is lesser. So does it make sense? That's what I'm saying. Anyhow you look at it, no contract is stagnant. There's no, a straight jacket contract that doesn't allow room.
Contracts.
That's what anyhow you look at it. Anyhow you look at a contract, there is no contract that is straight jacket that doesn't allow room for any further negotiations or possible termination. There is no contract like that. Especially if you are making this noise that it is the cause of your, your rise in debt and all those things. After all these expenditure on our power that they are claiming caused our debt, what was the debt levels we left in 2017? 120 billion. So how many power plants have they procured? How many power agreements have they entered into? And today we are talking about 600 billion. So sometimes they should spare us these. I don't want to. They should spare us. Yes, they should spare us because it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. Okay. We are and you see the worst of it, they will tell us that it is not being used. If it is not being used, what are you supposed to do as a good manager?
Right.
You shouldn't be disturbing our ears every day. Our neighbors, we are exporting power to our neighboring countries, isn't it? We are doing that. If you buy something and it is not in use again, what do you do?
All right, Prince, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
You want to greet your people in the Upper West?
Yes, I know a lot of them are watching. I want to extend my greetings to all of them, most especially my regional chairman, Chairman Abdul Nasser Sani Bonas, and all the regional executives and my family.
Right, thank you so much for being here. Are you going back to the Upper West right now?
No, I'll be around for a while. Okay.
So my guest for today has been Prince Mahmood, who is the deputy organizer for the NDC in the Upper West region. And for you who you are still watching the show, don't tune out yet because we have a lot coming your way.
A lot of them extend their special greetings to you after watching the
Oh, thank you so much.
Some of the messages are still on my phone.
Okay.
They've been watching you and they really admire
you. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you. And
so if I don't say this, they will not be happy.
Tell them I love them too. Yes, tell them I love them too. And please keep watching Joy Prime. Don't watch any other station. Thank you so much. Praise, thank you for being here.